right, we'll go ahead and get this started. Megan Starrett was unable to be here this evening, so she asked us to go ahead and cover community development for her. In community development, we only have one piece, and that is the Planning Commission recommendation for rezoning. It's rezoning of lot 757, 5.9 acre parcel that's on Forest Avenue Southeast. You have a attached map, and it looks like they would like to change it from family residential to business. It's a winery and tasting room that they are desiring to put there. The people that are requesting this, they are unable to make it this evening, so they'll only get first reading, and then hopefully at the next work session they are able to meet. Any questions? Yes, Ms. Green.
Yes, can Mr. Maley or someone from administration, please, I'm having a hard time trying to figure out exactly where this piece of property is. On Forest Street Southeast. I do have the map, but it is saying it's on the north side of Forest. It is east of Condell. I have no streets going to this property. And since it's in a residential area, I have been getting some calls regarding this.
I'm trying to find a map for you, a better map. But I believe it dead ends on Forest. That's where Forest dead ends.
Well, if you're taking, if you're going east on Forest from Erie Street, that dead ends into private property. So here's Forest. Okay. So Erie's right here?
Correct.
Okay.
It runs along here, then that's where it ends right there, and this is the question. So this is Forest right here. I know this should be a color map, but it's not. So it goes right here, see right there, see where it goes to that parcel where that road ends right there. That's where the entrance would be, right there. And this is the parcel here.
So do you have any background why they would want to put this type of establishment within a residential area?
I mean, it's going to be a great question. We should come in and talk with the council about this issue. I don't know that they want to put a winery and tasting room, that's all I know.
Yeah, I mean, Forest and 16th don't even have striping on the roads aren't, that's where I'm just a little confused and questioning
I
this
can't answer
piece.
the motives for why they want to do it. They want to do it.
Can you share that with me?
This is the issue.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. And the Forest is in between. 16th is in between.
So I guess, I'm looking at this, well, we're at them, but I'm assuming that's the golf course that it abuts against.
Yes.
Yes, it does. Yeah, farther,
That's
further down.
farther down, but if you're saying Forest right there, I mean.
But I mean, right here, if you look at this, where this pond is, wouldn't that be the golf course?
Yeah. Yes.
True. I'm coming from Forest, so I'm looking at it as Huron, Arapahoe, behind those, Mohegan, behind those residential areas is where I'm focusing on,
Yeah.
is where my concerns are coming from.
No, and I agree, they're right there
Versus
on
what's
the,
butting up against
Yeah.
the golf
I agree, they're
course.
right there on those residentials, and those residents do have a concern or a valid concern. I'm assuming though they're trying to slide in next to the golf course. Ms. Lippman?
May I ask what the residents have shared with you as far as concerns in that area? Is it the traffic that they're concerned about?
Because it's residential, a lot of these are runners, so we have people coming and going a lot, and they're just worried about more traffic coming through this residential area. So that's what I've gotten so far to date. I know there is a home association meeting that is being called for tomorrow night due to this piece of legislation. So people are trying to get some information together.
Do you think,
Yes, Ms. Lippman?
would it be possible to have one of those maps, the colored maps made for,
I'll send out a better copy
or even
tomorrow.
if it's something you can print off, that would be printed in color?
Is that Massillon tomorrow?
No, Walnut Hills Home Association is no longer being held at Lakesong. It's being held at Diane Patch's house on 16th Street at 6:30.
Yeah, I talked to Ms. Patchett this morning.
I'll try to attend.
The Ickeses will be here next week, is that correct?
They-
It'd be nice to hear from them.
Next week or?
Yeah, well, it's up to you. I'm sure they could be here next week, and they're in Florida this week, unfortunately, so I was thinking next work session.
Ms. Stair had stated next work session, which would be 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. That's-
And then we also have to have a public meeting, which we'll probably table this anyway, so it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I make clear to Ms. Patches that there'll be a public meeting and notification, et cetera, they'd have the opportunity.
I don't believe there's anything else from community development. There's nothing environmental. Deb was unable to attend this evening as well. Health, welfare, building regulation, parks and recreation, police and fire.
Yes, we have two pieces of new legislation that are to be looked at this evening. One is actually from Chief Burgasser regarding a donation of $3,000 from Grief Brothers. They would like the funds to be donated, or they'd like it to be appropriated to the Civil Service Commission in order to offset the cost of upcoming promotional exam assessment centers. I did ask Barb if she could speak to both this request for the donation, to accept the donation of $3,000, as well as the second one, which would be from Chief Moser, regarding an additional $3,000 donation from Grief Packaging. And I think that $3,000 was to be placed in the grant line. Barb, would you mind just explaining a bit further as to what the use of the funds will be?
The use of the funds for both?
Yes.
Okay. So for police, as you can see here, this request is to accept the donation, and it's not appropriate at this time. So Chief Moser is requesting to accept the donation, and he's going to put it into the law enforcement local grant, so it doesn't have an exact purpose set up for it at this particular time.
Is there a reason that Green Packaging has decided to donate to the police and fire? This is something that's done on a regular basis, or do we know any thought process behind the donation?
I don't. Just generosity, I see.
I was just curious as to whether it has been an annual thing or if they've just decided to.
Yeah, that I don't know, so.
Excuse me?
We've had a really good rapport with them over the years. We've always get down there to check out new facilities and things like that.
Well, I think that if there's no objection or further discussion, we'll put it on the agenda for Monday. That's all I have.
Thank you. Public utilities,
I have nothing.
rural sports,
I have nothing new. We got some leftover legislation from last meeting. One, ordinance number 28, 2020, we passed in special meeting, but ordinance number 29, 2020, amending the council's codified ordinances of the city of Massillon and enacting a new chapter 121 council of codified ordinances for the city of Massillon pursuant to unclassified rules this is where we're talking about uh, how we gender, I guess is the best way to put it, gender classifications within the wording in our document. So I don't know if there are additional questions or wording in our ordinances. Are there any additional questions regarding that or discussion? Ms. Lippman?
I think we had a brief discussion when we were here last that instead of the he, she, that we were going to be more appropriate with using they, their. Has that change been made as well?
No.
No, it's not. I guess I would suggest rather than doing it again at another time in the future that we make those adjustments on this legislation.
So we need to amend what we've been doing already?
Yes.
This is Creamer.
Did we ask the law director to review this and
Yes.
give us recommendations on this last time, last
I
session?
believe you did. Would you like to speak, Mr. Richard?
I was asked specifically to look at the previous statute as it read and then the additions as they were, and obviously we're talking about additional ones now, but they were mirror of each other. The only thing, of course, was the addition of or she or his or whatever possessive pronoun. So if we, are now making the adjustment or amendment to add those, I can obviously look at them again and make sure that they are consistent with the previous one and that we're just making those additions and nothing more.
What are your thoughts, Mike?
I think it's good to bring it up to today's standards. I'm not totally down with politically correct, but I think as a city of Massillon, we probably should have those updates made and be a little bit more, gender neutral. Yeah.
Quite honestly, it's a question of council, not really one of law. So it's legal anyway we want to do it. So, even if we were so constricted as to say he, constitutional arguments, and certainly there are federal steps in place that would not allow us to adhere to that anyway. So it's probably best to keep up with the times.
Agreed.
So I prefer that as well.
Any other questions or concerns? That'll be on the agenda. It's already on the agenda, we give it first reading. And ordinance number 30, chapter 121, council, section 121.02B, rule 11, powers and duties of the codified ordinances of the city of Massillon, Ohio by enacting a new section 121.02B, rule 11, powers and duties of the codified ordinances of the city of Massillon. This is where we're talking about changing the order in the agenda. Gave that first reading last time. Was there any additional questions, concerns, any additional comments on that? Ms. Lubman?
I guess I would ask our council president, since she's the one that is controlling our meetings or running our meetings, if she would have a preference to any further changes that would make the flow of business more user-friendly.
Mr. Lewis and I discussed that, and I don't have a problem with the change. It would make it easier if something was coming up that would be in the front, so we wouldn't have to amend the agenda every single time.
Thank you.
But what I also discussed was in the code of ordinances that under president or under anything that doesn't say he dash she, since I've been president for 4 years and I'm always referred to as a he.
Well, that was part of the changes in the
Right.
ordinance, yes.
All right, well, that'll be on the agenda, and I will most likely move that forward for vote on Monday. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. Streets, highways, traffic, and safety.
Yes, we have some changes. I think everyone has a copy. If we have questions with the engineer or Dave, somebody want to explain exactly what happened? This will be a change from ordinance number 21, I believe, from this year. Slight change, movement.
Good evening. Questions?
Well, we see on here, correct me if I'm wrong, the bid came in well, and you have room for 4 more streets that you moved from contract 2 to contract 1.
That is correct. Originally, we handed out the list for contract 1 and 2. We were looking at using carryover money for contract 2 of upwards to $2 million. We met with the auditors. At this current time, they're only certifying 1.2 million as of right now. So we had to revise contract 2 to reflect that new price or that new estimate. So we moved a couple things around. We moved several streets from contract 2 to contract 1, as Mr. Sterrett said. And then we had to tighten up contract 2 a little bit. So there's 3 streets there that at the current time we have to remove from contract 2. It's on the second page. Yeah, if the bids come in well on the second one, we'll be able to add back on. Similar to what we did with contract 1.
So this will be the same thing, then you'll need the emergency language to get this expedited.
That is correct. And I know we're pushing it right today. We just received the open bids for contract 1 late last week. We had moved, we took those numbers, plugged them into where, things were at. And now contract 2, we tightened that up a little bit on the estimate to try to reduce the amount of streets we had to remove. If we didn't, the next council meeting is not until April 6th. We wouldn't be able to advertise until the week following the 6th, around the 13th or 14th. We won't be able to open bids until almost May something. So, at the current rate right now, if we're looking for emergency language, to go ahead and get that going so that late March to early April, we can get the bids open.
Yeah, it's included on here. Councilman Lewis?
I just wanted to add, I looked at this and I applaud them for getting as much on here as possible, but I have an intention of making a phone call tomorrow to see if we can squeeze a little bit more. Because I want to know from the auditor why we're being told this money's not here, when, I was under the belief that it should be, especially when we look at approximations for Wellman at 6th. Those 2 together are only another $150,000. And I don't see why we can't find. Warmington, I understand, because after speaking with the engineering department, there's some OWC, Ohio
Public Works.
Ohio Public Works money that we can get for that. And so it might be smart to pump brakes for a second, see if we get some additional funding from an outside source. But Wellman and 6th Street should be taken care of with local funds, and I want to have a conversation with the auditor. Not that the mayor hasn't been able to, but I just want to see what she says and why we can't get another $150,000 and get these 2 streets added on this. And hopefully we can have that conversation this week and get some answers from the auditor, maybe have her here Monday before we vote, and maybe get some of this resolved, if we're lucky to get that on.
That would be my suggestion as well, if the auditor wouldn't mind coming to a meeting and at least sharing with us why the 1.2 was her certification amount, and if it's possible to, as Mr. Lewis says, squeeze any more out of our budget, or if it's in anticipation of additional tax that's going to be coming later in the year. Can we look at it as available to us now, perhaps even from another source, until those funds have come in to be recertified?
Was this one originally from the carryover? We were going to take money, wasn't it? Okay. But she doesn't feel comfortable doing that today.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, I want to see that. I'd like to see that moved up.
Well, and that's where I'm coming from, Mr. Thayer, is carryover was like around 5 million. So we talk about certification and things like that. It's a carryover, it's money that we have, and we should be, as a council, just able to appropriate it. So I don't know, that's why I want to talk to the auditor, see what her exact verbiage is and what she's calling, because it may be her advice that we should not go beyond, but I don't know if there's anything that stops us from being able to just say, you know what, no, we want to spend this on the streets, and we're going to spend it on the streets. And that's kind of the conversation I would like to have with her, to see what her justification, she may have a very good justification I'm not aware of, so I'm not putting her under the bus. She does an excellent job, but it's worth the conversation.
Sure.
I don't have my spreadsheet with me today. I left it at home that had contract 1 and contract 2,
Correct.
and then the CDBG fund streets. Do you know off the top of your head, I know we were looking at $2 million to put towards this, but what was the total estimate for those 3 contracts? Was it 1.6, 1.8 million?
Yeah, the original was 1.656,
Okay.
and then the second, we went back and forth. Originally, I know the administration requested 2 million. Tightening up the streets, going through everything, we were about 1.8 with a little bit, flexibility in there. And then to change this the way we did today, Mr. Lewis and I were talking, I think it was 150,000 for the first 2 and another 120 for Warmington Road. So there's some of your difference, down the road right now.
It's not a total of like 600,000 for these 3 streets, it's much less than
It's
that.
much,
Okay,
it is.
much
It's
less.
you're in the neighborhood of 300,000. A lot of that has to do with the prices we received for contract 1. We're able to, when we award the contract, we'll do a change order and add those streets on for the contractor. And they were comfortable with it. We've already talked with them, so.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to confirm that contract 1 are funds that are already set aside via the street tax. And contract 2 is the carryover funds. Is that correct? That's where the costs are going to be paid from.
To the best of my knowledge.
Is that correct? And also, Greg, you shared with me on a positive note, the additional 160-plus catch basins that are part of contract 1 are going to be part of this 1.6 that is being spent, as well as the street repair.
That is correct. There was, and actually, I did not, when we talked, the 160 catch basins, there are additional between the 7th Street, 1st Street, and Sawmill. So there's going to be additional catch basins into that 1.6 million. And that's all included in that 1.6.
So it's over 160 something.
Correct. And those are 2s, as we rate them, 2s and 3s, and 4s and 5s. There's some of those.
Just one additional question here. On contract 1, we have Walnut Road, it says end of CONC.
Concrete.
What would that mean? Where's concrete?
If you, at the intersection of Erie Street, there's concrete instead of asphalt, maybe 100 foot east of the intersection of Erie Street.
Okay,
So it's a transition piece in there that's concrete.
So essentially what we're doing there is we're taking scenic Route 21 to Erie Street, there's a gap because of some concrete, but it'll
It's
still
about
be
100.
100 feet from Erie, and then all the way up to 16th Street. And then on the other side of 21, we already had some paving work done from 21 to 6.
Correct.
A couple of years ago, I believe.
3 years now.
3 years ago, and then we're going to be taking it from 6 to 9.
That's correct.
So Walnut from 9th all the way to Richville Drive and beyond will have been done in the past 3 years.
3 yes.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
For finance, we have 2 new pieces. One of them is the $1.2 million appropriation. as with the contract 2 that we were just discussing. And the other one is the Grief Brothers for the fire department appropriation. We do not have an appropriation request yet from the police department. So that money would be received but not appropriated. As far as old business goes, anybody have any questions about either one of those? As far as old business goes, we do have Mr. Pedro here. We do have your sand traps appropriation, what I'm calling it. Do you have anything you want to update us on with that, or?
No, we're waiting on this, and then we'll get moving on the rest of that.
And then if you can use your microphone, Mr. Pedro. You had called me today. There's a piece of legislation that he is working on, and he would like to have it on the agenda for the 16th. If I recall, though, you have to meet with your board first, and that is happening tomorrow. And he would appreciate if we would do a verbal. And I told him, why don't you come tonight and at least discuss it with council so that they're aware of what it is that you're wanting to do, and then we can get the verbal later in the week and get it on. Since it's just a logistics thing right now. So go right ahead.
After speaking with my board, the meeting will be Wednesday at noon. We sent the notice out this afternoon. If many of you may know, you may not know, we have a problem in our pool. And it took quite some time to figure it out. I can tell you with the help of the wastewater treatment plant and their camera, several engineering firms, several pool companies, we finally have it figured out. There's a leak in the supply line that goes to our kiddie area. It's nowhere near the end. We pinpointed it. I'll say pinpointed. We have it within about a 15 or 20 foot area. Everybody that has come in has said they're going to have to dig that up. Back in 2002, or 2000, when they started building, they built the supply line around the features. So the supply line has 90-degree turns, 45-degree turns, instead of a straight line where we could have had a possible, what they call a slip fix, which would have been very minimal compared to what we're going to have to pay now. It's been estimated between $200,000 and $400,000 for this fix. Every board member is in agreement. Instead of putting a Band-Aid on this, we've had in-depth conversations with the contractors, with the engineers, and with the pool companies. So our goal is to make sure this doesn't happen again anytime soon. And with speaking with the engineers, this is kind of unprecedented, especially for Parks and Rec. They're going to have to do a design build, which means they have to come in. Once we put this out to bid, those companies have to come in and look and see what we have. And then they're going to decide on how they're going to rebuild this thing. They're going to have to demo what's there. And again, we may not have to demo everything, but we're not going to put a Band-Aid on anything. We want to make sure we do it right, and hopefully for another 18 or 20 years or 30 or 40 years, it'll hold on. I am here today because I didn't have time to get the legislation or our board's approval by Friday. I can tell you we did a lot of research on this. It's taken a lot longer than I wanted. It might actually be beneficial because the summer, I'm guessing if we put it out to bid, say right before April, and then we choose someone by May, there are going to be a lot of companies that are available in the summer. It's not a usual, not a normal time to work on pools because everybody's swimming in them, but hopefully. So, and we've had that word from a couple of people. We have a company from Kentucky, based in Kentucky, that does the whole Midwest. We have one from Massillon. There's one, the guy that takes care of our pools from Aqua Pools, he's the closest one. There are several, whoever brings the bid in, they're going to have to do design build. So it is going to be difficult, but I'm asking that we can get this on the agenda next week, if that's possible, to get this moving.
Ms. Lipton?
Will you be asking for a certain amount or that range, or without bids, how do you know?
Our board is going to approve up to $450,000 maximum, and I think if there's any overages, and I will tell you, one company said it could be $300,000 to $350,000. Another company said up to $400,000. We talked about if there's any, if there's any overages or anything, as with any construction, we felt safe to I'm feeling safe to ask for $450,000 as a maximum. Believe me, I hope it comes in at $250,000, and I'll be very happy. But I don't want to be short. But if we have to come back, we have to come back. I don't have a problem with that either.
Are they looking at possible updating the kiddie pool as well with that I mean, I know some of the other facilities in the area have a little bit more to offer as far as the, I'll say the kiddie pool area. And I wasn't sure if while they're looking at what's under and might be a problem that they look at a possible updating.
All the features will be replaced, that's part of this.
Oh, okay.
Our features, again, I mean, go look at them, they, we paint them, there's rust, there's, from the chlorine, we do the best we can to keep them. In fact, this year we were scheduled to have the kiddie pool area painted. Well, it's going to be painted, all right? We're going to put new features in as well, so it will be updated.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? I personally don't see an issue with being able to probably give that verbal. Ms. Walter, do you think you would have an issue? I mean, obviously, we're going to see it first. So just give it to Diane.
Yes.
Diane will make sure we put eyes on it. As long as it lines up with everything you reported tonight, I don't think we'll have a problem putting it on for Monday.
Thank you.
Now, try to throw something in last second.
There won't be anything new.
Anything else? I did want to add, Mr. Thayer, I forgot to bring it up. I've spoken with Mr. Hermking today. At the next work session, him and I might have something for you to discuss. He had brought up 2 weeks ago about those, the traffic on Bird, if you recall, and that sparked a conversation about those speed detector units or whatever. And then him and I have been talking, and he's done some research on those. So I know he wants to share some of that information with council at the next work session. And then I've been doing some research on some like speed bump type technology that I think would be beneficial for like a Bird or for a lane dale or something like that. And so I think we're just going to both try to share that information, and then hopefully Streets and Highways can somehow put that into a legislation of some sort and start to see if we can get that ball moving. But I just wanted to give you a heads up. Don't have anything at the moment, but he wasn't able to be here tonight to start discussing. I wanted to let everybody know that we haven't forgotten that they're, following up on it.
The police chief has some equipment already where they've been able to, it's more of a bump that
Yeah.
they can put in a specific allotment so that you can see what the traffic is, what the speeds are that the cars are traveling in that area. So I'm not sure if you may want to check with him to see what they already have, so that we're not, duplicating what we already have. I thought what we talked about were the signs that would actually show you're going 39 and a 25.
Okay.
That type. Oh, Barb, would you like to share something?
Again, just share with you that our speed detector is out on Bird Avenue today. It's already out there.
Okay.
They put it up. Police chief already put it out
And
there.
that's the bump
He
one.
gave the mayor and I an update on that as well.
Good,
then.
so-
So, and then he'll give you the report back, similar to the report that you received back up in Mayflower, up
Yes.
in that area.
Yes.
So I remember you bringing that up 2 weeks ago, and I'm just sitting here brainstorming, thinking, okay, when we all discuss it, I think if we do start looking at some more proactive, passive ways to help with the speed, one way we would do it would be through those monitoring of the reports the police have, and that would let us know, identify key areas. Like you've already started to show, okay, people are complaining, let's put it here, let's see how valid that is. Yes, it is. What can we do to be more passive and proactive?
Yes.
So-
I had them run it on Langdale as well as Woodstone.
And you have all that data
I
already?
do.
Perfect.
And then the last one was Mayflower as well.
I will say that I drove through Canal Boulevard a couple weeks ago, and as funny as it sounds, they did have one up on their main strip, and it thanks you. Which, it sounds silly, but you're like, all right, I kind of appreciate that. Like, I got the thank you, I'm happy.
Well, it keeps you accountable for
Exactly.
what speed you're going. Yeah.
Sometimes it freaks you out too, when you're just driving along and jamming out, and then all of a sudden you're, oh, wait, hold on, calm that down a little bit,
It'd be nice to know what the cost of
Lombardi said he uses it as a measure of how fast he can go, though, so that is a challenge.
It would be nice to know what cost is associated with that
Absolutely.
type of technology.
Absolutely. Thanks. Ms. Green?
So I have a question, Mrs. Littman.
Yes.
With that data you received from those 3 streets,
Yes.
what was the outcome? Was there more patrol? what took place? I mean,
Well-
did it show speeding?
It did show speeding. All three of them had speeding being done, but they also, the report itself allowed for, and I think I alluded to it last time that I was here, a 10 mile per hour leeway. And that, I think, in a residential area that's 25 is excessive. So if you take out that qualifier, then I think the data was much more, even if it's 5 mile per hour versus 10 mile per hour, I think it gave much more of a insight to the level of speeding that's being done in our neighborhoods. No, there's not been a determination as to what should be done, again, because they're looking at that data that is giving that 10 mile per hour leeway, and in that instance, they're saying not enough that are beyond 35 to, I think, 48 was the highest speed in some of the allotments. There were some, yes, and in my opinion, one too many, but when it came to the chief looking at that and determining if something else needed to be done, it was based on the data that was taking that 10 mile per hour concession in play, and therefore there was nothing warranted in those 3 streets. So I didn't agree completely, but again, I think it's because of that 10 mile per hour. And we might be able to, speak to him and see if there's something else that can be done, not only for just those 3 streets, but others in the city as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, I just didn't want to forget to update when that happened, so. Anybody else have any other business for city council this evening? Yes. President Eisner.
Diane gave me the name of the company that built this, and she talked to them. Diane, you want to tell them?
Brian Walker, I think was his name.
Yes,
Right.
Wagner.
Wagner. He came in and he just wanted to take a look at his handiwork. Judge Elam is the one he dealt with when this was built. And I just asked him, would it be possible to turn this around so that council would face the galley? And he said it would be. So I gave President Eisner the information, and we're going to contact him and see what can be done and what the cost will be. Yeah, see what the cost will be. But it is possible to have you all facing the audience rather than facing the president. And your name tags are both ways, so council president, although you would have your back to her, she could still see your nameplate and know who to call on.
Great.
So we'll let you give you an update.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, Mr. Fair?
I keep getting hammered about animal control. Where are
That would be a question for, I'm assuming, Ms. Lemon.
anybody and everybody?
Well, I have not heard anything further after the meeting that the mayor had. I know that we were given the outline of information from the sheriff's office. So I'm not sure if there's more research to be done. Mayor, would you like to address that?
Good evening, Madam President, members of council. We actually met with Chief Moser today, and we were reviewing the ordinances that are already on the books, and with our discussion, our officers can do every ordinance that's on the books, and they are doing every ordinance on the books. So what he had asked is that I ask all of you is, what are your concerns? What are you hearing from the public that they are not doing? What are the concerns? Is it cats, feral cats? What exactly is it that you're hearing from the public? And that would help him to answer some of your questions.
Is there a delimiting time of the day when dogs are permitted to be outside barking?
I didn't bring that with me tonight, but that question did come up. Do they answer those calls? And the answer was yes.
Well, yeah.
They will go to the house and they will ask the owner to take the dog inside.
12:45 a.m. Fine.
People people have a responsibility in our community, and one thing that we are going to do is he's going to come on the television show so that we can share that with the community of what the responsibilities are. And maybe that's an educational piece that needs to happen with our homeowners that own pets. Even a cat, when you look at the law, a cat has to be on a leash if it's out of the yard. And I think I shared with you the last time that if you feed a cat for more than 30 days, you now own that cat. And so I think some of those things we're going to need to share with our community. Maybe they're not aware of that. I was not aware about the cat out of the yard being on a leash. I learned that today, so every day we learn something new. But the chief assured me that we are answering all the calls about animals. Now, of course, raccoons, that's a private issue. You know, like I shared with you, I had some raccoons in my attic because of the trees. If you have trees that go over to your house, they like to climb up on those trees and get on your roof, and then they get in. And so it is expensive. I think it was $800 to remove the raccoons from our house because they also have to get rid of the smell because the smell attracts the raccoons back. So that is something that would be a private issue, the raccoons.
I would say that the calls that I'm getting regarding the animals are dogs, not the feral cats, not the raccoons. It is dogs running, and they'll say wild, and I don't have first knowledge of this other than what the residents are calling and telling me, but they're saying that there are situations where they've been captive in their cars because there are dogs that are outside their cars that they can't get out of their cars to get into the house. That there are children that are at a bus stop where there are dogs that are running and not knowing, you know, are they friendly enough to corral? And they're saying that when the police are called, that there's nothing done. That they either are gone by the time they get there, or that, you know, they shoo them away or whatever, and then they end up coming back once the police have left. So I'm not sure if, you know, we need to maybe talk further with the police chief to see, you know, what calls, and maybe have record, what calls are being responded to, how are they being responded to, what are they doing, because the calls that I'm getting are not reflective of what you're saying.
Okay. And if we had an animal control person, though, the same thing would happen. By the time they get there, the dogs would have dispersed. What the piece that we need to understand is whose dogs are they? Because the owner is responsible to keep their dog in their yard. And if it's out of their yard, they must be on a leash, and it says specifically 6 foot or less leash. So we do have specific laws on the book. If you'd like, I can copy those and share them with you, and I can bring the chief in to answer your questions. But he assures me that they are answering all the dog calls. They do and have put pictures of dogs on Facebook, and they have been returned to the homeowners. And we rarely, in fact, the Humane Society and the dog warden said we rarely have just stray dogs running around. They usually belong to someone, and that owner needs to be held accountable. And they will cite them. He did share with me that they will cite them, but their first initiative is to give them a warning. Because sometimes your dog gets out of your yard just by accident. And so their first approach is to give a warning and put your dog inside.
There was training that was offered by the sheriff's office, and I know Mr. Lewis had asked if our officers were, have they completed that training, and they had not up to this point. Is that something that he's willing to allow the sheriff to come over and assist in that
We
training?
talked about that today as well, and he was going to call the sheriff and the dog warden and to see if it was just reviewing the laws that are on the books. He said if that's the training, he would be happy to review that with our staff, but he was calling them to see what exactly was the training, and he would be willing to do that with our staff.
Are there the laws that we have, the ordinances we have, are they like in one section? Or did you?
Do you have them, Barb? Oh, thank you, Barbara.
Section 505.01.
505.01, and then, actually, what I'll do is I'll leave this for Diane. If you want to copy it and send it out to everyone.
Well,
But,
we have a section in the codifieds that deals totally with our dog.
That's in our ordinances? Awesome, thank you.
Our codifieds. And
I-
those are on.
I reviewed this with him today, and I have highlighted many areas just to confirm that we are, in fact, answering those calls, and he said that we are.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'll go ahead and make a copy of that.
Yes, I would like that. That way we have exactly what you're looking at.
Sure.
Well, at this time, we will open it up for public comment. Again, please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. State your name, address, sign in, and please direct your comments towards council. Is there anyone who would like to speak this evening?
LJ DeLuca. Hi, everybody. Hi, Madam President, Diane, everybody else in attendance and in the galley too as well. And everybody that is listening through our YouTube. I want to get more people, our residents, and I'm telling everybody about it, to view us on YouTube with my friend Josh McClay back there so we can understand and get a big, powerful force of what's going on. I've been hearing about, first off, it's no input, but I've been hearing about 6-7 months about the mayor and the sheriff talking about we're going to do something about the dogs. Well, you know, I see somebody in the paper and their hand was disfigured, Mayor. It was completely disfigured.
All right.
Now, if it's your family member or somebody else like that,
Mr.
you
Gould,
would put
I
yes.
remind you that all comments are to be directed towards council.
Well, I am directing to the council, but I'm also directing to the mayor, but I appreciate it. Thank
This is
you.
a council meeting, Mr. Gould.
Okay, well, I'm going to do to the council. Also, I'm concerned about our city engineering department. Our law director, Jason Richards, said that he's recommending we hire some more engineers here for the city. Back in the 70s, I think it was, we had 7 engineers. Now we're down to 3 or 4. Also, Jason Poppy, who I talked to here for OHM Advisors, and he works for the city of Massillon as I guess a sublease or something like that. He's really experienced. He's got a PE, a civil engineer, a CPESC, and those people can do all the EP concerns. Also talked to Greg McHugh, who I like to talk to many times on the phone, our city engineer, but he's a civil engineer for. And some of those folks in Massillon, you can't sign off. We have at least about 50 plans going on. You can't sign off on construction plans. You can't sign off on anything. You still have to have somebody like Jason sign off on it. So yes, I'd like to say to the law director, we need more engineers. We only have 3 or 4 right now. All these plans going on. And the mayor's big on grants, city council's big on grants. They can't sign off on it. We need to have sign off on it. And also, too, I want to talk about Altman Massillon, ER. I went and I talked to the vice president on phone, which is Cindy, and I talked to the unit director, Julie Pierce. I also made an effort to talk to the Madam President and also Ed Lewis here. We had it all set up. They're in time to talk, questions and that. I mentioned it here at the city council. About a week later, Cindy, the vice president, called up and she said, you know, I feel uncomfortable to come and talk. Well, I can understand that. But all of a sudden, why are you uncomfortable? We're the city of Massillon residents. We have to know. Eddie Roth was right in here. He said that we're a level 3 or 4. Mercy has a level 2. And they also said in summation, if somebody gets in an accident, they can take care of you at our Altman Massillon ER. Well, I got news for you. I'm going to check on it. I told Ed Lewis tonight that I am going to have Cindy Hickey, and we're the vice president of Massillon, or Mercy Medical Center, come and speak because the residents of Massillon have to know what we have and what we don't have. And when somebody tells me they aren't going to show up, and I said, I'll go down there and I'll get the information and I'll present it to city council. When they don't want to do that, that sets up a lot of red flags to me, and it should set up a lot of red flags to Massillon residents. And I thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. Anyone else?
James Housestead, 2443 Wittenberg Avenue Southeast. And I just wanted to bring up again, because we want to keep it in constant reminder, and maybe, and I'll keep my comments directly to council. But I asked last council meeting, and I want to continue to do that, and ask for funding for the Resi Pond. I know the Parks Department has approved for looking for a grant for that. But again, I want to remind everyone that I believe the citizens have paid for that pond time and time again. And we did mention the $5 million carryover. I think I mentioned 4.5, it was apparently $5 million carryover. I believe the city has the money to restore that pond, and tying into that, I would also like to again remind all of us, infrastructure, new infrastructure costs money. We heard about the pool, the kiddie pool, and the costs involved there after so many years. I would also like you to really reconsider the splash park in the North Reservoir Park. I really would like to see us stay away from that because of future expense and the mess. Put the pond in, there is some maintenance, but it's going to be nothing like the cost of maintaining and adding the liability of a pool in there, in my opinion. So I'd like us to concentrate on getting the $350,000 as a resident request. $350,000 for the pond. I'd like for us to consider scratching the idea of a splash park. And again, not to be insensitive to Mr. Roberson, there are plenty of opportunities to honor him and to memorialize him as well through the parks, through the kiddie pool and so on. And yeah, we would like to bring, I'm slipping for a word here. We would like to bring information about mental health and so on, but I don't think we have to spend $1.5 million to do that. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, everyone. That'll be it for the evening.